right, man. Just peering outside. It's a little ominous around here, cloudy.
Is it?
Like I feel like I'm really in the middle of nowhere.
Well, I mean, you kind of are in some ways, which is outstanding. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, like, you got the best of both worlds. Yeah, you're exactly where you should be. And we hope you're exactly where you need to be and want to be today. It's a beautiful, sunshiny, about to be 49-degree day here in Overland Park, Kansas. Again, it's December 9th, the year 2025. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast. This is episode 895.
Yeah. Man, I don't know what you said when you're where I need to be, or I'm where I need to be. I mean, it was, what came across was, you're right. You know, I kind of did that. I came up here and I'm sort of like, you know, I think I've been talking a little bit about, you know, how people seek that external satisfaction or, chase things on the, the shiny objects or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
When I look out this morning and there's like no neighbors, nobody, I mean, I have neighbors, but nobody really is here all, year round, but
right.
And there's like 4 more inches of snow and it's cloudy and I look out and I go, I better damn be in a place where I want to be, because it's sort of like you have to go inside, man, to find a lot of satisfaction. But that's actually where I'm really at right now. It's kind of an interesting place and I love it because I just feel like the potential inside of us is infinite and I don't, probably most of us don't explore it enough.
Yeah, man, I that is, I think, like you said, especially this time of year where, really people are just looking in general. And because it's Christmas, people are buying presents. What can I get? What can I buy? What can I do? What do I need to get so-and-so? And you got to one up and you got to like, hey, that's like, as a parent, Alan and I talk about this a lot. It's like, we're fortunate. We don't have a lot of needs in life, and I still like, I'm pretty much still the worst person to shop for Christmas because I just don't need anything and I don't really want anything, which isn't any fun for anybody who wants to buy gifts. So they just kind of have to, kind of wing it, but that's okay. I mean, and again, I've already said it, Costco gift cards, hello, best gift ever. But,
done.
We talk a lot about, like with Hayden, like he's an only child and you're thinking, hey, but so he has more flexibility and more freedom and probably gets more than, other kids do. But we're like, yeah, I mean, you get him something and you're, then you have to like one up it every year because that's like the standard. So I'm trying to keep like the standard as low as possible. Because he doesn't, I mean, and plus, listen, if your kid's got a grandma or a grandpa, they're going to get all the shit they want anyway. Mm-hmm. I mean, so like really, you don't even, I mean, as a parent, like parent 101 is get them the necessities like a new toothbrush, a couple pairs of socks, a couple shirts, stuff they're going to hate. And then, let them get what they want to from their grandma because that's what they're going to do anyway. They're going to load them up and get whatever they want, for Christmas. But no, I think, in this month of kind of transition, I think a lot of triathletes find themselves here. You're trying to figure out your race plan, you're trying to figure out your race schedule. And a lot of people look back, a lot of people don't look backwards to figure out how they got there. And we talk a lot about, when you're looking at next year and what races you want to do and what you want to get out of it. I want to perform, on this day in this event, and this is what I want it to look like, and I want to beat this time. Or, if you're a younger athlete, you want to get better and improve your time over the distance. Maybe you want to go back to the same course and get a PR. Maybe you want to qualify. If you're an older athlete, right, sometimes you're still looking to PR for sure. At least in my opinion, you have that mindset. I'm still trying to PR, but if I can maintain and like limit the losses, that's also a huge positive. But I think when people look at the future, like in this year and the races they want to do, because it's that time, right? You got race calendars coming out. People are asking you what races they should do, what fits in where. And so when you look back, I always like to ask athletes when they're asking me, it's like, well, what made you pick the races you picked this last year? Because a lot of times we don't pick races for the right reasons. And then we don't set ourselves up for success, right? When you're looking for something, you want to go. And listen, I'm all for signing up for races just to do with your buddies. Like, I think that's a great part of the sport. It's probably one of the more underrated pieces that, honestly, I've never probably taken as much a part of as I should have, given, as a coach, you want to be there for your athletes. And so I'm all for that. Having said that, if you're looking to improve I think before you start to work on like, the physiological aspect and what goes into performance is go back into just your general decision making and what drove you to make the decisions on this last year. Because if you had a great year, you want to replicate that obviously and go back into that kind of decision making tree about what led you to that race and what consistent training led you to that race. But if you had a rougher year, right? A lot of times we like to blame training, or we like to blame a bad race, or we like to blame like a sickness or an injury or whatever it is. But a lot of times I truly believe, because again, like life isn't consistent, life isn't predictable for the most part, but I do think, if you've been in a steady relationship and a steady job and you've got kids, like there's always going to be ups and downs and obstacles and things that are thrown at you. But for the most part, there are a lot of things that we know this is going to be a harder time of year, right? Like I know that the summer for me is really challenging to find time to train. One, because Hayden's at home or he's got to go to a camp. And then it's also the meat of the season for our athletes. Like it's higher demand, like compared to right now, where people are like looking to do, more flexible things or not train as much. Races aren't far away. So like the demand for me, if I was going to race, like looking at the summer, is really off-putting. And because I don't know that I can wrap my head around the two, stresses that are raised, right? One with Hayden being out of school and the other one with just, higher demand in my professional life. And I don't think a lot of people will look at those kind of things. So if you find like these periods of your life or the season, whether it's being, kids are in school, a lot of parents actually find that as a lot more easy, because if you can work some from home or you can sneak in some rides during the week. Yes, it's hockey season, for us. So it's like insanely busy. January, out of the 5 weekends, we have 4 tournaments are all out of town. And you might look at that and think, God, well, that's impossible. When am I going to get my long rides in? Like I might as well not start for an early season race. But for me, I know that if I'm diligent enough and precise enough, I can get the majority of the work done I need to. I can sneak in a long run on a Friday during school. And so I think, again, like when we look forward, instead of just looking about the physical things and what I want to do, look back and, hey, what led me to that decision? And were these races that I had this last year, was I really setting myself up for success? And if I wasn't, what was I looking for at that time that made me kind of jump to this impulsive choice that maybe wasn't, a good idea that I ended up sticking with, regardless?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think, who doesn't like socks and sweatshirts for Christmas? That's like, when you said that, I was laughing because, that was totally me, as a kid. That's like, what? You always get your dad's socks or whatever. And
that's what
they
you
seem
do,
to
right?
like them,
as long as they're good socks. And listen, I love a sweatshirt more than anybody. It's just, don't come at me with the turtlenecks and the sweaters. Like, just don't come at me with that. Come at me with the hoodies.
Yeah, well, no,
I'm just some sweatpants.
I'm just saying, I'm at a season of life where I'm like, that sounds like a winner. And I realize that translates into my triathlon season too. Is where anybody out there who likes socks and sweatshirts, I could be your guy right now. Because as we get more into our master's lifestyle.
That's right. And hey, listen, you're speaking the master's lingo. I mean, you go on like wool socks and sweaters.
Exactly.
For Christmas, dude, that is the.
But anyway,
right now, keeping yourself warm.
I know, man. Well, I'm thinking, a lot of people, I think that's an interesting point, is like, why did you pick the race you picked or pick the races? And, as for me, that always I just kind of basically just flip the calendar and sign up again. Lately it's just like, right. I'm trying to, there's a piece of me that's always like, you need to do more races. And I get it. I probably should, but man, I don't know. There's something about the rhythm of it that's kind of feeling right. But again, like I said, it's sort of like, is the race the external, piece of the puzzle? I just have had personally, and I think a lot of my athletes do, and there's sort of we have goals, but they're not that necessarily always the races. I think races are great because, certainly for a long time I was doing 2, 3, 4 races a year, and now I'm just kind of like, okay, this isn't a race for me anymore. It's just to figure it out. What's feeling good, what's getting me stronger, what's, put me in a good situation day to day, because it's kind of like, we both have seen this where, people put that mammoth goal on their schedule, and then about halfway through they start crumbling. I mean, it's just, it can be, a situation where it kind of like, people start losing the zest for triathlon maybe or something. And I think that's kind of a bummer, because, the event, swim, bike, run is so good, just in general. It's such a nice little toolkit to have, in your daily life. And to like burn that out is kind of a tricky, it's kind of a bummer. That's what I've not wanted to do, because I still love doing it, even though I'm only doing one race a year, but I still kind of am waiting for that situation where I'm like, okay, I feel pretty good. I think I'm going to jump in this thing. I don't like the idea of really structuring out my year like hardcore. And a lot of times we don't have to do that anymore. Before it was kind of like, you had to make that decision early. Yeah, certain races we have, but now we have the option a little bit. And plus there's, always something that you can jump into. And I love, a lot of my athletes actually, I'm sure a lot of yours have that mentality a little bit. It's like, I just want to kind of be ready, and, sometimes the weight of a, elephant in the room at the end of the year is kind of a drag down if you get behind it, That's the thing, right? Is you don't want to just get behind. And that's all I'm trying to do, is sort of stay in front of the wave a little bit on a day-to-day basis.
I think, and you touched on it, I think kind of, in a peripheral kind of ways. A lot of people that I work with right now, or that, reach out about coaching, are very interested in projects. They're interested in like a new endeavor in the endurance, realm of maybe like a long trail run, or a long mountain bike ride, or, a tough race on a Saturday and a tough race on a Sunday, or a long swim. Like it's interesting, because we've always had athletes like this that, like kind of go up and down, but it's usually just the same athletes, like the same like 3 or 4 that I work with that are going between like 70.3s and 100 milers and, century rides and gravel rides. Like that's just they just have an adventurous spirit, and that's just who they are. And I admire that, because I haven't always been like that. And that's something I wish that I was, more often, at least like up until now. But most athletes, right there, it's performance. Like they find themselves in a specific sport with specific goals that, require or have a desired specific outcome. And that is a very, very narrow, it's like, using a sniper rifle from 2,000 meters away, right? It takes a lot of patience, a whole lot of patience, a lot of hurry up and wait, and then perfect precision to execute. And now I feel like I'm seeing, people with more of like, the sawed off, 12 gauge shotgun, approach to endurance sports. They're like, yeah, I just kind of want to just, fucking like blast off and see where it lands, and I don't need anything precise. I just need to hit the target. It might just be with like, one pellet, but that's good enough. And they're just that gets them excited. And to me, like it's been, we've had a lot of ebbs and flows, I think, in terms of training. And you and I have seen it all. We were around pre-COVID, we made it through COVID. Now we're here on the back end of it. And I've seen all these like mirroring focuses from athletes. Like, triathlon was huge, and it was like, the sport was growing in a rapid rate, and it's back there now. But then like 2020 happened, 2021, even through like the latter part of 2022, and I think early part of 2023, people had a lot more flexibility in their life. They had a lot more, yes, there was stress going on, but, as much as people hated like certain parts of that period, a lot of people missed that part, right? So have people fighting about going back to work and doing all kinds of things. And you were allowed more training time because of the removal of certain things in your life. Like you weren't having to take your kids to soccer every single night. You weren't having to commute to the office. Like you could just set up camp at your house and just get it all done. And that allowed, I think, for more volume and more freedom in certain areas. Yes, there were obviously outside stressors that I think everybody had, whether it was, stressed about getting sick, or whether it was stressed about just being isolated and prevented from, seeing people in general. It was still stressful, right? And so, but it also, again, like those extra flexibilities allowed us to be more precise with other things. And then now we've transitioned more back to, like it's regular everyday life, and stress is at an all-time high for a lot of people, whether you're concerned about politics or, the economy or your kids. It is like full on, way more, like it seems busier than it ever was before for a lot of people. And I think that people need, right? We need to outlet with endurance sports, but sometimes we don't need, and we like to work out, right? We like to exercise, we like to train, we like to process. But what we don't also want to do is be deterred or be, like put away or put off by a training session because you're afraid that down the line it might not become fruitful, right? It might not, have a very specific impact on this event that you're putting all your weight on, right? Like, especially for, a guy like you, maybe who's doing just like one event a year. So a lot of people I've found, especially going into this year, a lot of people don't want to commit to a race calendar, which I love. Just commit to training and being healthier. Something will come up, or I've had a lot of people that are just being more and more curious about, I just want to give this a shot this year. Like it's a project. And I think what happens is at the same time, you can also be the fittest person ever while relieving the most amount of pressure possible. And I think that's something that I know I'm trying to do for myself this year in terms of like getting back to more consistent training, is trying not to attach myself to goals or to like a performance-based metric, because that's been a struggle for me in the past, is just going towards, hey, it's like, create these kind of projects that'll kind of get you excited about getting back into shape, and then commit to doing it and then see what happens. And, if that's what you need this year, right? Like you need a project, you need something that's different, I say roll with it, right? And that's why, again, like we've always said since pretty much podcast one, is don't look at yourself as just a triathlete. Look at yourself as an athlete who does endurance sports, who loves to challenge themselves in different ways, that require, endurance, resilience, all these different things. Like that is what makes you the athlete you are. And if you take those like adjectives, well, that you could put that in, 45, 50 different endurance event buckets. And I think the more broad and you kind of like open your eyes up to doing different things, one, the longer you stay in the game of endurance sports, right? Again, I think that's a problem a lot of athletes have, is they just want to be just a triathlete. And then if they start to not like one part of it, then it's like their identity is gone. But the important piece is just to be an endurance athlete and to challenge yourself in certain ways. And then if something excites you, then go do it. But I think lowering that bar of pressure when life has enough pressure on it, right? You have pressure to be a good spouse. You have pressure to be a good parent. You have pressure to perform professionally, right? You have pressure to perform, financially and provide for your family and save for the future and keep up with the Joneses, whatever it is. Like there's a lot of pressure. So so it does seem a little, ironic, right? That in a life, again, depending on your life, like when you have all these outside or inside pressures, that we choose an outlet, right? Which can be endurance sports and triathlon or endurance sports, whatever it is. We choose a sport and then we attach another expectation on it that's going to just drive the pressure up, right? So if you're, think about it this way, if your life is already a boiling pot of water, right? And you got the lid on it and you got the gas flame heated, on high. You're like, oh, I'm going to do endurance sports. Like the goal should be to take the lid off and lower the heat, right? You want to bring that roiling boil of stress down to a simmer, or even just like down to nothing. But instead, what do? Well, fuck it. I'm going to like drain some water, to turn the top on, even tighter, and crank up the heat, because I'm going to add more to my life and add more stress to it with these expectations and these pressures that we don't need. And I think we don't always get into the sport with that mentality, right? Like I know how I got into it. I know how you got into it, very similar ways, right? We got into it to, turn our life around, right? Physically, mentally, and emotionally, right? And we did that. And then, of course, like, once you get into it and you get through that first year of, treating it with respect and doing what you should do, and you're seeing all these changes, then those, just like, with life, everything else kind of creeps in. Right? Like you're You're not looking for, a new house or a new city, but all of a sudden your best friend's like, hey man, we're moving to so-and-so and we're, buying a new house. And it's funny, right? Your next thought is, I wonder if I should move. When it was never even on your mind, right? But it's funny how our mind can be so pushed in a different direction, but we do that with sport, right? We do it with things that we love, with things that we're passionate about, that should remove stress and add value to our life by adding all these pressures and these performance pressures. And yes, there's a place for that. You want to perform well, but if you're finding it very, very hard, or you're just incapable right now of removing the performance piece and letting that go, of having a measuring stick that is a finite, black and white, I beat my time or I didn't beat my time, right? Then step away from it and choose something where you don't have a baseline, where you don't have a barometer, where you don't have something to compare to. It's just a finish. And I think more people need that than not, either as a whole season or to weave in their season so they're not so, wrapped up and so stressed about meeting a metric that, eventually may or may not come, but can also ruin a sport for you that should be, really positive and really beneficial.
Yeah, man, it's you're talking about endurance athletes, and I kind of think, it's almost endurance humans these days. We have to be endurance humans and focus on that, because, you were talking about when we got into it, and I was thinking about that as you're talking, because I was thinking back to the first time I, signed up for Ironman, and how omnipresent that was in my head. It was just constant, and it was, I think, driven a lot of ways by fear of finishing, fear of being able to do it. And it was sort of like, if I look back on that, when we were working together in the beginning, I was pretty solid on, I didn't really miss much that first year. And I think it was driven by that. And it was sort of this fear of being able to get it done. And I just, it was such a, when you start something new, you know how it goes, you're just excited about it, right? It was just so exciting. I would watch mass start swim videos all the time. Like, I would just be watching those in my free time. Look at that. I'm going to be doing that, and it was driving me. And then, like everything else, it's sort of new for a while. It kind of loses its impact, I guess, not in, just in a different way. I mean, it was still something I continued doing. I didn't have that same fear about it, but now I'm trying to look at things about, in a way of, all right, maybe I'm fear of not reaching my potential if I don't do it all the time, and that's sort of like fear of missing out on opportunities in life in a way. And I just think about, like, you watch some of these college football games or basketball or whatever. I'm just amazed at the maturity of some of these, like, 18-year-old kids, because the whole moment does not seem too big for them. And when I think about back to when I was a kid, and like how excited I would have been to play at, Duke in Cameron Indoor Stadium or something, like how that would freak my head off, but these kids just seem so calm on it. And to me, all I can think about is that they have really, over time just dialed into a process, right? And it's something that they just, or maybe something doesn't go wrong right in the game. And like I was watching the Ohio State Big Ten championship game, and some of the, a couple bad early plays by the QB quarterbacks, and they didn't fall apart. It was just, to me, it's like they just really have bought into the process of how, being patient and just sticking with the game plan works. And for me, that's, I think, one of the things, I try not to have like regrets or anything, but sometimes I'll kind of regret, maybe taking 2 weeks where I just kind of don't do, and you know what I mean? Or like I miss a few days. It's like, what am I doing? Am I doing that? That's just not serving myself, and I think that you have to figure, eventually have to figure out sort of a deeper, love for the sport. And it's not just based on medals and finish lines and things like that. It's based on what it's doing for you, and how it isn't like I haven't lost the excitement for triathlon. It's just kind of repurposed in a way. I'm really like grateful that it's part of my life, rather than I'm just excited to go, you know, show people what I can do or whatever, or finish and get a medal and tell people about it or whatever. You know, it's more like it just has become more of who I am. And I think a lot of times just accepting that and finding, you know, real joy in that process and just being involved in it and being able to do it and almost grateful that you can do it. You know, I think those are that's sort of the transformation that you go through in this sport, you know, and I think if you don't find that, you know, it becomes a one and done or a couple and done. And then you just kind of, you know, you're out trying to find your way some other way. And for me, it's just been a nice glue to have. And I always talk about Ironman as just being my compass. It's just sort of sitting out there, and it always comes into almost every decision-making process that I make. You know, is this going to be something that enhances that possibility of doing well that day, or is it going to go the other way, you know? And there's a lot of satisfaction in just kind of stacking little wins toward that process. And I think you have to almost be aware of it.
And that's why I think it's so important to, and I do generally think process is a way overused word, but like, that's why I do believe that whatever your, you know, quote unquote process looks like or needs to look like to create something, like you said, that's a glue, that's sustainable, that you feel like you need, that you feel like you have to do, then that's not tied to an immediate outcome. Like, to me, that's the ultimate answer, regardless of what it is. Like it needs to be your positive outlet that makes you feel better about yourself, right? That gives you energy, that you do with friends, that does anything like that is what that's what every, you know, parent, like when you think about, at least I would hope so, like every parent wishes for their kid when it comes to sports or anything, right? Any kind of a hobby is just something that they love, that you don't have to ask them to do it, that you have to tell them to not do it anymore and it's time to rest because they just love it. And it's not always an outcome associated. They just love the part of it that's, you know, they're growing with it. They're getting better each time they're doing this. I mean, that is, you know, what you want. You shouldn't have to, you know, at some point, yeah, you do have to about doing it, but that's when you know you're in a good spot with a sport. It's not, you know, they're not crying after every game. They're not, you know, they're not throwing tantrums when they don't win it's like, yes, you can be disappointed about a loss, but it's not so devastating that you can't function for a week, you know, and that's, I think, like when we talk to ourselves as adults and you're managing all these things in life, a lot of people can't find it to even get to the point to where it can be a glue or be something so positive because their approach to it is so toxic and so out of balance out of the gate that one, your journey in endurance sports is so short-lived, you know? And I mean, like even look at, you know, coaching, right? Like we talked about this in one of the podcasts back in 2021, 2022. At least in America, like we lost like 60-something% of coaches during that period of time, you know, from burnout. But I think some of it's from burnout, but I think this is like just from, you know, lack of approach, you know, to coaching. And like the average lifespan of a coach is like, you know, 2 to 3 years. And here we are, you know, cresting over, you know, a decade. And and I think that's, I mean, I wouldn't be able to handle like coaching you know, an Olympic team where it's all about performance and all about winning or losing. Like that's just not how my brain is wired. And so I can see like the high stress environment of that with both the athletes and the coaches that make you, you know, want to, you know, like it's almost not joyful.
Yeah.
You know, and like I can't imagine. I know some coaches, you know, they only want to work with high level elite athletes where it's just about that. But like I don't get excited about numbers. Like I was, and I know you don't either. Like I was texting with a couple of athletes yesterday, and I was talking about like my 2 favorite, you know, like moments and images from this entire last year. And 2 of them are at Ironman Wisconsin, and one of them was an athlete like I saw like they're just like doubled over after the race, after an incredible race, like his wife and daughter like holding him up. And it was like a great photo. Like it wasn't hurt. He he had gone to the well so much, and like his wife and his daughter were in tears, and the other one was a father-daughter that I coach, who he actually just sent me like the Polaroid shot, or not a Polaroid, but like the actual picture of it in a card, was them two just having a conversation post-race, like a conversation without words, right? Because you had both just like shared an experience as father-daughter that most people could say they can't ever do, they won't ever do. And it's like those special moments to me as a coach, like those are what matter the most. And they're not tied to some gigantic, result. They're not tied to, a performance or a metric. And yeah, there's plenty of those to celebrate from this last year, but that's not, you celebrate the things along the way, and that's what gets you to the, quote unquote performance or the podiums or whatever it is. Like there is no change, in my opinion. And that's what makes it, so fulfilling, because it's not just about the numbers, and it drives me nuts, to be totally frank, like this time of year, that it's all about, every marketing commercial or ad or social media you see about like coaching and taking on clients is all about numbers and data and main sets to do. I'm like, honestly, dude, like I can tell you right now from what I hear from athletes, and people just want you to fucking care. People just need somebody to care, to care about them, to care about their journey, to care about their training, to care about their good days, right? And to applaud and to care about them and who they are in their bad days, and tell them not to stress about it, and then we'll figure it out. Like people need a partner. They need, somebody to be on their team, right? They don't need, a guy with a fucking lab coat, and a pocket protector. That doesn't make you look better. It just, to me, makes you look you need to be invested. And I think that's also what makes, I think, coaching like really, really hard, is when you invest so much in the athlete and the person, and you know this, like Mondays are our hardest days. You read through what happened on the weekend, and they don't hold back. And sometimes it's just really, really, really hard to hear. But that also makes it that 40-minute run. I mean, because you're the same way, right? Like I read some athletes, or I open up some athletes training each week, and I'm like, how in the hell did you even get this done? Like you look at it and you're like, I can't tell you how proud of you I am, and how amazed I am that you have been able to muster up enough energy to squeeze in a few runs this week, giving everything that you're going through, because most people would just crumble in life. Not to mention, like make their way through life like you are, and manage things the way that you're managing them. And I just got to give but that's the part of coaching, right? That I think is so fulfilling, and then sort of flip the script back on the athlete. That's what I think allows it, that is the glue, right? Because for those athletes, that 30, 45-minute run is glue. It's helping you keep your life together. It's helped keeping your mental sanity, right? And your emotional baseline, your overall wellness. Like it's helping you keep it together. Because when life is hard and life is, throws things at you, like sometimes you just need to disappear, right? And take care of yourself, right? And be selfish with your health, which again, I think most people don't do. The hockey stands are littered with sedentary, overweight people drinking beer at 10 a.m. yelling at their kids to work harder. The irony is insane. But yeah, I just think like that glue piece to me it's not the whole, right? The glue isn't, but it allows you to stay whole.
Yeah, as you're talking, I was thinking about a big part of this almost is like how much bandwidth do we have to be chasing all the time? Chasing, those numbers or chasing those things and like that. And I totally agree with what you're saying about how triathlon can be a force of nature to get away from it all and kind of let go and treat yourself or whatever. But then I also have this question of, is triathlon the fuel for your life, or is life the fuel for your triathlon? And to me, sometimes those, I mean, especially, it just seems like over the last several years, I mean, things have just gotten, if I may quote Art Bell, quickening. Things are just going so fast.
Like that.
You know, it's the quickening. It's like everything is, you know, going faster and faster. Technology's faster and everything's like, you can do things so much faster that we're always just focused on that. And, you know, it's kind of a metaphor. It's like we can always go faster in our races or whatever. Or is it important to be able to slow down? And like, if life is overwhelming and, you know, everything about your job and career and kids and things like that and everything, then sometimes, like, you know, if we go out and try to chase triathlon on top of it, it can really be I think you know, combination for like stress and burnout. And, you know, it just, you gotta, you know what I mean? So it's almost like we have to approach triathlon in a way that makes sense. And I agree with you, man. It's, you know, I don't know how certain people get things done. It's amazing to me. But I agree that, you know, it's like we have to have empathy for, I think that to me, the best part about coaching is when I can get my mind wrapped in a place where it is right now. It's like I'm having empathy for myself, but I'm also thinking of athletes first in their lives and what they're going through and figuring out the best, you know, sort of solution or approach for enjoying life and getting more energy and feeling good and having, you know, a prosperous and valuable life. And I do think that, you know, it's so easy just to kind of like, we were kind of joking about AI, not joking, but talking about AI and how it's just like flowing into the world and everything. And it just seems so sterile in so many ways. And as we continue to coach, I think that is probably one of the best things that we've always done, is that we've always cared about athletes. And like you said, it's sort of their life first, their lives and how they're going about it. And we can be there as sort of that support system or partner in their journey and that kind of thing. And that's really how, you know, on a coaching level that I think you get by burnout too. It's like you really kind of care, and it's not like another stressor. You know what I mean? Like I think it's so easy for coaches, and, you know, and it's not like I'm immune to it. You know, some days shit's going bad for me or whatever, and it's tough to kind of read about a lot of that kind of stuff, but I have to settle down and really, you know, it's like just be, it is. It's like coaching is in the beginning, you know, you're kind of coaching, you want everybody to podium and it's all about that and shit like that. But now it's just, I really want people to get the best out of themselves and feel good and be happy and shit like that. So that's I think a reason probably a lot of coaches get burned out, because they get their own lives get so stressed out that they, you know, get selfish or you know, it becomes more of a tough thing rather than, hey, this is just what we do. This is just part of this is the main thing we do is, you know, kind of support the whole process.
Yeah. And it's, you said it, like, it's easy, right? Cause, you know, coaches and athletes, we're really no different. It's just a different thing that we're trying to achieve for someone else or either for ourselves. And it is like, it's hard to, you know, like you said, to keep the main thing. And that is the person. But the cool thing about it is that, you know, if you, in my experience, if you keep that the focus and you don't try to be performance based, then usually, I mean, honestly, 99 times out of 100, like, the performance appears. Yeah. You don't treat them differently. You treat everybody the same, whether they're going to finish, you know, in the 16-hour mark in the Ironman or the sub 9-hour mark. You treat them the same. And I just honestly think that if you get so swept up, and I agree with you, that's why most coaches burn out, because it's all based on, you know, performance, and you just can't predict it. You just can't. You can do your best to increase the likelihood of it happening, but you can't predict it. but that is how you treat them, and you treat them no differently than, again, anybody else. And I think that makes it more, I think in my experience, it's so much more valuable. Like, I talked about this in one of the emails I sent out a couple of weeks ago, but like 3 of probably the top performances that I've had all year, with 2 athletes, qualifying for their pro card in a race and 1 being on the podium at 7.3 worlds. I didn't treat them any differently leading into that race, and I won't treat them any differently leading out of it because of the outcome. And I didn't treat them any differently than the person looking to finish at the 6.5 hour mark. I mean, honestly, for a lot of them, they got 60 to 70% of the same workouts. Yeah. It's about the small changes here and there, and it's just about caring for the person. And again, like you said it, like if you do that, then the rest comes. You just can't flip it, right? You can't care and then have performances and only care about performances, and it's great to highlight those, but man, like the highlights to me are seeing people like, again, like the ones broken down after a race that made it through a hard, challenging year, that showed themselves that they can't overcome anything that they want, and they're more resilient and more steadfast and more durable than they ever thought imaginable. Because that stuff lasts. The other stuff, it's fleeting, and it's even more fleeting for most triathletes, because as soon as they finish, right, with like a really great race, they are already thinking about how they can do better in the next one, or they're like peeling back the layers of, but I could have done this, or I could have done that. Oh, yeah. And so it's short-lived, right? We all do it, but the other stuff that it becomes innate about you and becomes more of like the fabric of who you are, but you got to stick in there long enough and have the right approach to let it happen in the first place.
Yeah, it's thinking about the bandwidth for chasing and stuff like that. I always like to think about, what if we had somebody trying to coach our podcast? How do you think that would go? I mean, they'd be like, let's hold on a second.
Worst job ever. Yes.
We gotta, every week you gotta have the 10 top ways, cutting transition time or something. We could have probably a ton more listeners if we started playing that game. But we also knew in the beginning that we were doing this because we loved it, and we didn't want to taint that with, all these fake things or, so we just kind of get on here. And I think we've both realized over time that this has become sort of a good therapy session for us in general. And
twice a week, man.
Yeah, we just, but people resonate with it obviously, but I just think it's a great analogy in the sense that the longevity of what we've done. I mean, 895 podcasts today. We wouldn't have done that if we were just always chasing numbers. You know what I mean? At some point, we, early on, it was sort of like, how many listen? We got 25 people today. That was awesome. We were all stoked about it. But after a while, it's just sort of like, obviously it's connecting on some level. And if we would have always just had in mind, building huge, audience and making money off of advertising, I just don't think it would have lasted. You know what I mean? It's kind of nice to be able to come in here and do something that we enjoy and kind of just figure out shit together, and hope that people connect with it. And speaking of athletes, I just want to point out kind of a fun thing. I won't name him, but one of my athletes, he's kind of getting off of Ironman and he's getting back into it. And just out of the blue on a choice day, he rode an hour and a half and he goes, "Hey coach, I just rode an hour and a half and I listened to Christmas music the whole time."
Oh, kill me right now.
Because it's the best time of the year. And I just thought that was the coolest, funniest thing. It was pretty awesome.
Man, good for him. I mean, that trumps that completely. Still trumps, I think, the athlete I had last Thursday who embraced December rules and ran a marathon. It's like,
it's find your bliss, man. That's what it is.
Exactly, man. Exactly. But I mean, again, listen, I love that story. I was listening to Christmas music the whole time.
Man, that could be a new challenge out there.
Seriously, I mean, well, here's a great question. And we can wrap it up on a lighter note, but will they ever come out with new Christmas music?
Well, they do all the time, don't they? With the
Yeah, but
Mariah
no one
Carey
listens to that shit.
No.
I'm talking like the old school stuff, like, or is that just going to be the standard Christmas music forever?
You mean like the original recordings?
Yeah, like the originals, like the Jingle Bells and all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, you got renditions, but like, it's not like you're like, hey man, have you heard that new Christmas song?
Oh,
No one ever says that. It's like it's just the classics that are always there. You know, it's always been interesting to me. It's like that's just people. I mean, Mariah Carey, I would say she had a few.
yeah.
But
I mean, I think every
outside
like
of
country
that-
star does a Christmas album now, so it's like
I mean, what is even
that's
country
chasing
anymore?
money.
I mean,
that's how
aren't
they get
half the
popular.
country star? Yeah, but I mean, aren't half the country stars right now rap artists? It's like, what's even country anymore? And I can say that because I'm from Nashville. So, yeah, it's just like some of the songs are just never going to be replaced. You know, that's why you got to listen to the old, all your classics. You know, that I was riding. We were on our way to hockey the other day, and I frequent the alternative like '90s radio, and Red Hot Chili Peppers is one of Hayden's like favorite bands, and he consistently misquotes them as the Red Hot Jalapenos. Because he thinks he sees like the Red Hot. He's like, can we listen to the Red Hot Jalapenos? And I'm like, yeah. And I mean, sometimes they've got bad words, and I'm like, hey, you're 9, and you watch Quest of the Stanley Cup on Amazon Prime, and those coaches say a lot of words that you wouldn't want your kid to say. But as long as you know they're adult words, that's fine. But I'd rather you listen to this and listen to some of the trash they've got on the radio right now.
Well, as long as he's into Boys to Men.
It's exactly. That's like, listen, you want to listen to Uncle Mike's favorite jam, Boys to Men? Slide it in there, man. I bet you Boys to Men's got a few classic Christmas jingles.
Oh, for sure, dude.
Oh, they
were primed for that,
Heck yeah, dude. I can see you right now opening up your 2 boxes. One's from JCPenney, one's from Castornot, and one's got Socks and Sweater, and you got freaking Boys to Men Christmas songs.
They were
background.
like they were so manipulated. They would have wore anything. I mean, it reminds me. It's sort of like Christmas music. A band, it reminds me of when I was growing up and my favorite bands, the rock bands of the 70s and 80s when they were just getting it done, and they were my favorites. And then all of a sudden their next album was all ballads. And I was like, oh, what is going on? They just, just kind of a little bit of a sellout. Is that a song? What happened? You're trying to get fancy on me.
Yeah, I was trying to get fancy. I was listening to the Boys to Men, Let It Snow. They got one.
Oh, yeah, Let It Snow. Yeah, that was a classic. I don't know.
See, it's still a classic. I'm saying, like, they're always going to be classics, and that's why against Christmases. You don't have Thanksgiving songs. You just got Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you know how it's like, they just tap that, you're a Boys to Men fan back in the day, and you bring that on, and if your mom or your grandma likes it, they got something. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
If it can cut that mustard, then they're winning. Because
it's so true.
Now it's like the same old thing when the rappers realized that if they started going on like Ellen or something,
that's right,
they would just crack a whole new market.
Mm-hmm.
The daytime TV
they're
market.
like, hey,
what is Snoop Dogg doing on?
Exactly, dude. That's the thing. Everybody loves Snoop Dogg after the Olympics. Like, and what he got paid for that is astronomical to me.
Oh, really? I don't even know, but
it was like millions of dollars a day
just to walk around and be stoned.
Yeah,
with the metal on him. Yeah, but I mean, it's just the base of that crossover art,
live in. Snoop Dogg's making millions of dollars a day to talk to random people that rarely it didn't even make sense on the Olympics.
Nothing made sense.
Meanwhile, we still got to like pitch in and like purchase school supplies for our kids' room in school. Like,
maybe,
do you need to know anything else?
Maybe they should start. Iron Man should start putting like Jan Frodeno on Dr. Phil or something like that, just to like mix it up and get a new audience for their extreme events.
At least put him on Springer. Put him on or Maury Povich, like somebody legit. Is Geraldo still around?
Oh my God, they're all still kind of around, I think, in some regard.
Yeah, and it's a shocker that we're still around with an ending like that to the podcast. I mean, listen, we were serious for long enough, and we figured we would lighten your day. Just a little bit. So, but yeah, no, in all seriousness, like it is like, make sure if you're in the sport that you're loving it, that you're treating it like glue. It's keeping you together. I love what you said about, like how it fits in your life, that your life isn't training, that it gives you life, and just so much value you can get from the sport. And we get so far in the weeds with so much of it, with everything that's, the world presents us now, that we can, kind of latch onto, but it's, a lot of it's fruitful or fruitless, it doesn't really add a lot of value, because to me, metrics don't add tons of value. It's the person, it's the individual. So make sure you can at least try to keep that your focus, for 2026. And if not, maybe take this time to reset it.
Yeah. Don't get caught up in the theater. Live your own life.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Well, as always, we love you guys. We do appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com, and is our one-stop shop for all things coaching camps and community. If you're interested for coaching for 2026, make sure you click on the coaching tab and browse through our roster of coaches. And if we need to help you pick one out, we're happy to do that too. And if you need anything from Mike, he's available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. If you need anything from me, Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, man. Let it snow.
Let it snow.
All right. See you.
See you, dude.